Hello there. My name is Nick. On the internet, I usually go by Admiral Zaitan1, so that's where you can find me most places on the internet. I'll have relevant links to where you can find me and where you can find the decks I'll be talking about in the description. I've been playing Magic since 2013, since Dragon's Maze, the final set from Return to Ravnica block. Um, I'm making this series of videos, series of deck techs to talk about the brews I made for Kaldheim and what I'll be playing on day one of the expansion. And I just wanted to share them with other people and give other people some ideas about what they might want to see on in the early days of the expansion. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the deck in the comments, or anything you would like to see from me going forward. So if you have anything like that, please just let me know. Alright, let's go on what will likely be the last of these. This is my Sultai midrange deck for Kaldheim Standard. You can see at the lower part of the curve, very similar to the Abzan deck, it is mostly just removal. We got 2 Bloodchief's Thirst in the 1-drop slot, we got 3 Eliminates, we got a couple Heartless Acts, and then we have Cheville to synergize with all our destroying things to get us some value. Cheville is just not a very good card, though, even though he's mythic, so maybe we do end up cutting him for something else. I just wanted to try him, because if he's going to work in anything, it's going to be a deck like this, so I figured it was worth a shot. We have 1 Elspeth's Nightmare to get us a kind of bad 2-for-1 against some decks. Like, it'll kill a small thing and then duress them, so like it's something. We have 2 copies of Serulf, who I'll show you here if you haven't watched my other videos. Whenever a permanent an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Serulf. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if Serulf has 1 or more 1/1 counters, you can remove all of them and exile each non-land permanent with CMC less than or equal to the number of counters removed this way. So it does like a Pernicious Deed effect. He's also a 3/3 for 3. I think that 3 toughness is a huge limitation in older formats. Like, the fact that he dies to Lightning Bolt in Modern is a huge downside. Like, if he was a 3/4, he would have a way bigger shot of being playable. But anyway, I wanted to try him in Standard, because I think if he's going to work anywhere, it'll probably be Standard. Maybe Commander. We have 2 copies of Murder Strider, just to kill bigger things for less mana than other things. Or kill small things if we really need to, or be a lifelink body. Like, adventure creatures are just good, they're so flexible. We have 1 Polukranos, again, like I mentioned before in the Abzan video, and I think the Jund video. I wanted some escape creature just to help deal with rogues main deck. We have more on the sideboard, but we'll get to that later. We have 4 copies of Behold the Multiverse. Behold the Multiverse is the Foretell card draw spell. I think this card is really, really good. Like, possibly the best common in the set for Constructed. Like, I think it's really good. Scry 2, then draw 2 cards for 4 mana, or that can be broken up into 2 installments of 2, seems really powerful. And just really easy to do. Like, for example, you can foretell this on turn 2, and then on turn 3, if you didn't draw your 3rd land, you can then cast this for 2, and then scry 2, draw 2 cards, so you can dig 4 cards deep to find a land. Like, this card is just so flexible. I really think this is a good card. We have Binding the Old Gods, 4 copies. This is like the new Elspeth Conquers Death, essentially. Might possibly be better, at least in certain decks. Chapter 1, destroy target non-land permanent opponent controls. Again, like I've said before, anything. Like, creature, planeswalker, enchantment, artifact, anything. It's non-land permanent, it dies. Chapter 2, search your library for a forest card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Again, this is any forest card, so we can get a Triome or a Snow Duel. There's 1 Snow Duel in the land base. It's a Woodland Chasm, I think. Let me just check. Yeah, 1 Woodland Chasm. Which is a forest. It's a forest swamp. And then obviously the Triome is a forest. And then we don't care about Chapter 3, because creatures you control gain death touch until end of turn. Like, that's just not really relevant. I just think this is a very good saga. It's also uncommon, for what it's worth, for those of you who are strapped on wild cards. Like, I think it's just a really good card. 5-drops. We got 2 copies of Elder Gargaroth. Big Gargles is just there to beat face and be a big blocker against aggro. Because it can do both, because it has Vigilance. We have Shadow's Verdict as a 1-of board wipe, and we'll get to why that is a 1-of later. It's the same reason with a lot of our top end. We have lots of 1-of top end. I guess I can just go into that. We'll skip ahead a little. We have 3 copies of Emergent Ultimatum. Had to work some spice in there. Emergent Ultimatum is a card from Ikoria that completed the ultimatum, that helped complete the ultimatum cycle that started in Alara, which was 12 or 13 years ago, like late 2000 aughts, like right before 2010. I want to say it was 2008, but I'm not sure. So Emergent Ultimatum, pull up this card. Search your library for up to 3 monocolored cards with different names and exile them. So that's where you have lots of 1-ofs, because they have to be different names, and they do have to be monocolored, so you can't just keep getting more Emergent Ultimatums. An opponent chooses one of those cards, shuffle that card back into your library. You may cast the other cards without paying their mana costs. Exile Emergent Ultimatum. So essentially, we pick 3 different cards from our deck. Our opponent chooses one of them that we can't have, and then we get the other 2 for free. This is really powerful, especially with Kaldheim coming out, because we got a really cool new card to make this an always bad choice for the opponent. We got Alrund's Epiphany. I can pull up here. Alrund's Epiphany is an extra turn spell. It's a time warp. Create 2 1/1 blue bird creature tokens with flying. Take an extra turn after this one. Exile Alrund's Epiphany. So we'll talk more about play patterns with that in a second. I want to go back to going up the curve. But this is just... Your opponent is not going to want to give you an extra turn spell, especially with the other stuff we can take. So we'll talk about that later. This is just... It's been a while since we've had a playable time warp in Standard that wasn't just format warping like Nexus of Fate was a few years ago. But anyway, going back to the curve, we had talked about Shadow's Verdict, I think. If we haven't, that's just a 1-of board wipe. Only kills small things, doesn't hurt our gargoyles or anything. Basically only kills our Serolf, Chevils, and Murderous Riders, who we don't hugely care about. We have a Vorinclex. Like I've said before, Vorinclex is just an amazing card from everything I've seen. Like just 6/6 trample haste that also has huge incidental upside and downside for your and punishing for your opponent. Burning Rune Demon as a card advantage source to go tutor up cards that we want to see. Like we can get the common play pattern will be tutoring up Emergent Ultimatum plus whatever card you actually need in that situation, so that your opponent can either give you the card you really want, like a Shadow's Verdict if they have a large board, or you get an Emergent Ultimatum, in which case you can go find other stuff. We have the Emergent Ultimatums like I talked about. We have Alrund's Epiphany like I talked about. We have Seagate Restoration, which is here to double as land number 27, and then also to be a big monocolor card to get off of Emergent Ultimatum. So if your hand is even remotely full, you can fill back up with Seagate Restoration. And then we also have Kiora Best the Sea God, the big splashy saga from Theros. So this is, again, a huge monocolor thing to get off of Emergent Ultimatum. Again, all of our top end, except the Emergent Ultimatums themselves, are monocolors, so Emergent Ultimatum can find them. And this is really powerful because you will likely always get Alrund's Epiphany. When you're casting Emergent Ultimatum, you'll likely always tutor for Alrund's Epiphany plus Kiora Best the Sea God plus something else. Your opponent can either give you the something else, which will usually be a situational card, like a board wipe, if your opponent is going wide. In which case, you get Kiora Best the Sea God and Alrund's Epiphany. If they do that. If they do that, you trigger Chapter 1 of Kiora Best the Sea God, you get your 8/8 Kraken. Then you take your extra turn, so you draw another card, play another land, all that. You trigger Chapter 2 of Kiora Best the Sea God, which taps down all their stuff, so you're free from pressure for the next turn. You get to hit them with your Kraken. And then Chapter 3, you steal one of their things after the... Because they don't get to attack you their next turn, because all their stuff is tapped, so you essentially got another return. So you just use that to absorb a ton of time from your opponent. Um, and if they don't give you the Alrund's Epiphany, then you get a Cure Best of Sea God, and you get to do whatever situational thing you wanted, like grab a huge Elder Gargaroth, or a Vorinclex, or a Burning Rune Demon, or wipe their board with Shadow's Verdict. Like, I just think this deck has so many spicy one-ofs that are so impactful in certain situations that this deck has a at least decent chance, and I'm looking forward to playing with it. Looking at the mana base, we are, as you can see from the color breakdown, we are primarily black, secondary in green, and tertiary in blue. So we have the full set of black pathways, Clear Water and Dark Boar. We are only running 3 of the Simic pathways, the Bark Channel, Tide Channel. We have 4 Fabled Passage, 4 Triomes, 1 Woodland Chasm, again to be another forest duel, and then a bunch of basics to go find with our Fabled Passages. In the sideboard, we have Cling to Dust and Chainweb Arachneer as extra escape cards against rogues. We have Agonizing Remorse against slow decks like Control or slow midrange. We have Mystical Disputes for counter-heavy decks so we can help resolve our big spells. We have an Okame Adversary, just because, again, I think there will be a lot of green in early standard. There will also be a lot of red, but that's beside the point. Because there's no enemy color hate in current standard. Nothing I'm aware of, because they rotated from M20. We have 2 Shadow's Verdict as extra board wipes in case we really need to have them on curve. And then 2 Coma Cosmos Serpents against control decks or I guess rogues decks with a lot of counter spells, because Coma cannot be countered, and then kind of generates unbeatable value by making a serpent. Here, I'll pull them up. By making a serpent at every upkeep, not just yours, your opponent's too. So he's a 6/6 that can't be countered, makes a 3/3 every upkeep, and those 3/3s make Coma himself harder to kill because they can give him indestructible. So, yeah, that's my Sultai midrange standard deck. I built another version with Yorion, not because of huge Yorion Blink synergies, but just because Yorion helps against Mill. So I might try that on release day too, but I didn't think it was different enough to warrant its own video, so it's not going to get one. This will probably be where I stop with videos for pre-Kaldheim release, but you can definitely expect more from me after Kaldheim releases, and I actually get to play with the new cards. But until then, thanks for watching.